faithfully sharing value, exploring great books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally here with Book Talk. Today, I'll be interpreting for you the historical novel, The Complete Biography of Hu Xueyan. This is a key work by the renowned author Gao Yang. Spanning almost 1.8 million words, it tells the story of Hu Xueyan, a red-top merchant in the late Qing era, depicting his journey from rise to downfall. Being a novel, the specific events in this book might not be entirely factual, yet it excels at capturing the historical vibe. It portrays Hu Xueyan's dramatic life ups and downs, and also reveals the political business ties and daily life in late Qing society. To help you grasp it, we'll break down Hu Xueyan's key life experiences into stages, using the book's accounts. Stage 1 is the beginning of Hu Xueyan's career. Hu Xueyan hailed from Jishi in Anhui, lost his dad early on, and his family was dirt poor. So, introduced by someone, he moved early to Hangzhou in Zhejiang to work as an apprentice in a money shop. He began with menial tasks like sweeping floors and emptying night pots. He was sharp, articulate, generous, and well-liked. After finishing his apprenticeship, he became a reliable clerk at the money shop, and the boss sent him out to collect debts. By then, Hu Xueyan had honed an even greater skill, reading people, which was crucial for his career launch. He could spot unvalued people with great potential and invest in them early. During debt collection, Hu Xueyan took a liking to a man named Wang Yuling, whose father had spent money to buy him an official position. But this was only a reserve official spot. So he had the qualification, but to actually get a post, he needed to spend more to network. Wen Yuling's dad had passed away, and though he was an official, he was incorruptible, not even leaving funds for Wang to go back home, so Wang had to stay as a guest. In the prefecture, Wang Yuling was destitute, often relying on baked cakes to stave off hunger. At this very moment, Hu Xueyan met Wang Yuling. Though just a brief nod, Hu Xueyan sensed that Wang's knowledge and manner stood out and saw promise in him. So he acted on his own, without telling the boss, and lent Wang a large sum from the money shop, 500 taels of silver. No, what's that mean? As per the book, back then in Hangzhou, a 7-person household spent around 10 taels a month. Hu Xueyan privately lent Wang Yuling this money, equivalent to over 4 years of expenses for a family. With such a huge sum, no one could be sure Wang could repay it. So when the boss found out, he fired Hu Xueyan immediately. After that, no other money shop dared to hire him. Hu Xueyan's life was about to fall apart. Meanwhile, Wang Yuling, thanks to Hu Xueyan's backing and other opportunities, quickly became an official in Zhejiang. Wang Yulin didn't forget Hu Xueyan's kindness. He pulled out all stops to find him and became sworn brothers. Hu Xueyan often advised Wang. For example, soon after returning to Zhejiang, Wang was moved to the Maritime Transport Bureau, handling tribute grain shipped by water to the capital. But this job was tough. If the grain didn't arrive on time, the official in charge was screwed. One even killed himself over it. Yet Zhejiang couldn't gather enough grain, and shipping capacity was severely lacking. Back then, there was a group called the Grain Gang, made up of boatmen, an industry union with secret society traits. They ran the canals all year, and grain transport used to depend on them. But in the late Qing, folks started shipping grain by sea. It could go through them to Shanghai first, then be loaded for sea freight. That saved cash. But that meant stealing the grain gang's rice bowl. Why would they help you get the grain to Shanghai on schedule? Whoa. If the grain didn't make it on time, Wen Yuling was probably toast. What now? But Hu Xueyan breezily fixed it. He figured, since Zhejiang was short on grain, why not get enough right in Shanghai, ship it straight out, and dodge the grain gang hassle? So he hit up big grain dealers in Shanghai, got them to front some grain, and promised to pay back with new tribute grain from Zhejiang via canal. But tribute grain was often shabby So merchants didn't want to trade their prime stuff for it. Xueyan sweetened the deal with cash. Financially, yeah, it was a loss, but it got Wang Yuling's job done, setting him up for a promotion in the bureaucracy. So, over time, Wang Yuling couldn't manage without Hu Shuiyan, and Hu got to do business thanks to Long's backing. He first used government funds to open the Fukang Money Shop. Later, when Wang Yuling became governor of Huzhou, since Huzhou was rich in raw silk, Hu Shuiyan dove into the silk business. To expand his business, he teamed up with the grain gang and connected with big private merchants nationwide, buying and hoarding raw silk in bulk, even monopolizing Shanghai's silk trade for a time. Since silk and tea were China's top exports back then, Hu Shuiyan had to deal with foreigners. He joined forces with Pang Air, another silk tycoon, to hike prices and pressure foreigners into compliance. The first time, he made 180,000 taels of silver, boosting his reputation big time. So, in Zhejiang, Shanghai, and other areas, he gradually gained a foothold, growing his business steadily. Wang Yuling also became governor of Zhejiang, a top provincial official. So Hu Shuiyan entered his career's development phase. The book's second stage began. Then in 1861, the Taiping army seized Hangzhou, and Wang Yuling killed himself. And Hu Shuiyan lost his backer, but he quickly latched on to an even bigger one. Here's what happened with Zhuo Zongtang. When the Taiping army took Hangzhou, Hu Shuiyan had just bought 100,000 dan of rice in Shanghai for Wang Yuling. Learning Wang had been defeated and committed suicide, he couldn't deliver the rice. Hu Shuiyan, being quick-witted, immediately took the rice and defected to Zhuo Zongtang, the new governor of Zhejiang. Zhuo Zongtang had heard some accusations against Hu Shuiyan and was planning to punish him. So when he first met Hu Shuiyan, he acted very disdainful. The book writes that he fixed Hu Shuiyan with his commanding eyes, shining brightly as he scanned him from head to toe. He spoke with a sarcastic tone, but Zhuo Zongtang was leading troops against the Taiping army and fretting over food shortages. Hu Shuiyan solved his urgent crisis, and Hu's remarkable insights changed his mind. After several talks, Zhuo Zongtang not only gave Hu Shuiyan his own padded robe to wear, but also invited him for drinks privately, even saying few in the world had such insight. Their bond grew close fast. During Zhuo Zongtang's recapture of Hangzhou, Hu Shuiyan offered strategies, spent money to calm people, stabilize post-war chaos, and revive the economy. This made Zhuo value Hu more, consulting him on foreign affairs, loans, and almost everything, especially during the decade-long Western expedition to reclaim Xinjiang from Russian invaders. Hu Shuiyan procured food and weapons for Zhuo Zongtang and repeatedly advanced funds and donated medicines. Hu Shuiyan's business flourished as a result. To supply daily medicine for Zhuo Zongtang's army, he founded the still famous Heqing Yutang Pharmacy. He handled military pay for the Western expedition through Fukang Money Shop, misappropriating funds to earn interest, managing firearms, machinery, and foreign debts for Zhuo Zongtang, earned him hefty commissions and kickbacks, plus he could cook the books. Hu's business expanded rapidly. Fukang branches nationwide, 29 pawn shops, thousands of acres of land, and a thriving private salt trade. In Shanghai and Hangzhou, he built lavish estates housing dozens of concubines, amassing wealth of about 20 million taels, earning the nickname Living God of Wealth. For his services to Zhuo Zongtang, Zhuo reported Hu's merits to the court, requesting special rewards. The court granted Hu a yellow riding jacket and the privilege to ride horseback in the Forbidden City. Hu received a second-rank official title, and his mother got a first-rank honorary title. Even the Zhejiang governor had to dismount his sedan chair at Hu's gate. This is how Hu became known as the Red Top Merchant. He reached his life's peak, but as the saying goes, When full, water spills. When full, the moon wanes. After the peak comes decline. His career's downfall began, the book's third stage. Here, Hu became the main target of Zhuo's political rival Li Hongzhan, lost to foreigners in the silk trade, was dismissed, and had all property confiscated, returning to pennilessness. Yet according to the book, Hu accepted this calmly, saying he started with bare hands and ended with bare hands, losing nothing. He dismissed his 12 concubines and spent his remaining years drinking and chatting with friends. This concludes our summary of Hu Xueyan's journey as described in the book. Through this journey, we see Hu's life was full of dramatic highs and lows. So, he achieved spectacular success but also suffered catastrophic failure, leaving rich lessons. Now, let's draw insights from specific events in the book. First, examine Hu Xueyan's path to success. Actually, from what we've covered, it's clear Hu Xueyan's success hinged mainly on official backing. This reveals the first key to his success: masterful networking, connecting with all sorts, building relationships. Here, befriending Wang Yuling was crucial. Without funding Ring back then, Hu couldn't have linked up with officials. But let's be real, this was super risky. What Hu did was basically a high-stakes gamble. Subjectively, per the book, Wang Yuling seemed totally unremarkable then. In his 30s, listless yet arrogant, few had Hu's faith in Wang's potential. Objectively, though, Wang's success involved crazy luck. He randomly met Yang Yongfu at an inn, who happened to be aide to Wang's old friend He Guiqing, and Zhejiang Governor Huang Zhonghan happened to need He's help. If any piece was missing, Wang wouldn't have risen. Hu's 500 taels would have vanished. So back then, besides Hu, likely no one bet on Wang making it big. If this gamble failed, disaster. Yet Hu dared, deeply tied to his character. The book opens describing Hu as sea-like, warm, kind, generous, stepping up when needed. It also shows another strength: empathy. This taught him that to succeed, he must first help others succeed. Why he backed Wang. Of course, Hu knew all ventures carry risk. You gotta weigh dangers against rewards. Though not spelled out, it's clear Hu weighed risks versus rewards before helping Wang. Though broke, Wang's dad had wide official ties. Given a chance, Wang could tap one connection and skyrocket. If Wang landed a lucrative post, Hu's 500 taels could yield tenfold or hundredfold returns. Plus, by observing Wang Yuling's manner, Hu Xueyan felt his success odds were high, worth gambling on. At the same time, Hu never stuck to rigid standards when dealing with people. He adapted brilliantly. He backed Wang Yuling mainly for gain, but also from friendship, especially after they grew close. Like when Wang was ordered to handle rebellious monks withholding grain. Too harsh, risked riots. Too soft, solved nothing. And this had nothing to do with Hu, and he had urgent goods to sell. But he couldn't abandon Wang. He dropped his business to help resolve it. Later, when Tycoon forces besieged Hangzhou, cutting off food, Hu risked his life to get grain in Shanghai, then waited desperately outside. Truth was, Hangzhou's fall was inevitable. His actions had no practical effect, done purely for Wang, yet he could instantly shift standards based on reality. When Hangzhou fell and Wang died, Hu immediately switched to self-interest, offering the grain to Zhuo Zongtang to solve his crisis. Talking to Zhuo, he read him perfectly. I'm a businessman. I get things done, not play politics. During Zhou's recapture of Hangzhou, Hu strategized, spent money to calm civilians, stabilize things, and revive the economy, making Zhou rely on him for foreign affairs and loans. Especially in the decade-long Western expedition to reclaim Xinjiang from Russia, Hu procured food and weapons, advancing funds and donating medicine repeatedly. Hu's business boomed as a result. To supply Zhuo's army with daily medicine, he founded Hu King Yutom Pharmacy, still famous. He handled military pay through Fukan Money Shop, misusing funds to earn interest. Now, managing foreign arms and debts for Zhuo earned him kickbacks and commissions, plus he faked accounts. His empire grew. Fukang branches everywhere, 29 pawnshops, thousands of acres, and a thriving illegal salt trade. Xueyan acquired many luxurious mansions in Shanghai and Hangzhou, housing dozens of concubines, with his wealth estimated at 20 million taels. He earned the nickname Living God of Wealth. Because he greatly assisted Zuo Zongtang, Zuo reported Hu's merits to the court and requested special rewards. The court awarded Hu a yellow riding jacket and the privilege to ride horseback in the Forbidden City. Hu received a second-rank official title, and his mother was granted a first-rank honorary title. Even the Zhejiang governor had to dismount his sedan chair at Hu's gate. This is how Hu became known as the Red Top Merchant. He reached his life's peak, but as the saying goes, when full water spills, when full the moon wanes. After the peak comes decline. His career's downfall began the book's third stage. Here, Hu became the main target of Zuo's political rival Li Hongzhan, lost to foreigners in the silk trade, was dismissed, and had all property confiscated, returning to pennilessness. Yet according to the book, Hu accepted this calmly, saying he started with bare hands and ended with bare hands, losing nothing. He dismissed his 12 concubines and spent his remaining years drinking and chatting with friends. This concludes our summary of Hu Xueyan's journey as described in the book. Through this journey, we see Hu's life was full of dramatic highs and lows. He achieved spectacular success, but also suffered catastrophic failure, leaving rich lessons. Now, let's draw insights from specific events in the book. First, examine Hu Xueyan's path to success. Actually, from what we've covered, it's clear Hu Xueyan's success hinged mainly on official backing. This reveals the first key to his success: masterful networking, connecting with all sorts, building relationships. Here, befriending Wang Yuling was crucial. Without funding Wang back then, Hu couldn't have linked up with officials. But let's be real, this was super risky. What Hu did was basically a high-stakes gamble. Subjectively, according to the book, Wang Yuling was totally unremarkable back then. In his 30s, listless all day and still arrogant, so few had confidence in Wang Yuling's abilities like Hu Xueyan did. Objectively, Wang Yuling's success was full of chance. He coincidentally met Yang Yongfu at an inn, who happened to be the close aide of Wang Yuling's old friend He King, and Zhejiang governor Huang Zonghan just happened to need his help. If any of those factors were missing, Wang Yuling wouldn't have risen, and Hu Xueyan's 500 taels might have gone down the drain. So back then, besides Hu Xueyan, likely no one bet on Wang making it big.
If this gamble failed, disaster. Yet Hu dared, deeply tied to his character.
The book opens describing Hu as sea-like, warm, kind, generous, stepping up when needed. It also shows another strength: empathy. This taught him that to succeed, he must first help others succeed. Why he backed Wang. Of course, Hu knew all ventures carry risk. You gotta weigh dangers against rewards.
Though not spelled out, it's clear Hu weighed risks versus rewards before helping Wang. Though broke, Wang's dad had wide official ties. Given a chance, Wang could tap one connection and skyrocket.
If Wang landed a lucrative post, Hu's 500 taels could yield tenfold or hundredfold returns. Plus, by observing Long's manner, Hu felt his odds were high, worth gambling on. At the same time, Hu never stuck to rigid standards when dealing with people. He adapted brilliantly. He backed Wang Yuling mainly for gain, but also from friendship, especially after they grew close, like when Wang handled rebellious monks withholding grain. Too harsh, risked riots. Too soft, solved nothing. This had nothing to do with Hu Xueyan, and he had urgent goods to sell, but he couldn't abandon Wang. He dropped his business to help resolve it. Later, when Taiping forces besieged Hangzhou, cutting off food, Hu risked his life to get grain in Shanghai, then waited desperately outside. Truth was, Hangzhou's fall was inevitable. His actions had no practical effect, done purely for Wang. Yet he could instantly shift standards based on reality. When Hangzhou fell and Wang died, Hu immediately switched to self-interest. offering the grain to Zhuo Zongtang to solve his crisis. Talking to Zhuo, he read him perfectly. I'm a businessman. I get things done, not play politics. While Zhou Zongtang focused solely on getting things done, disdaining politics, Zhou's rival Li Hongjian only played politics. This contrast deepened Zhou's trust in Hu, showcasing Hu's social intelligence. Beyond Wang and Zhu, Hu highly valued other officials, pulling out all stops to win them over. Meanwhile, Hu's era saw small-scale farming societies opening up. Hu grasped information's value early, believing the sooner you reach well-connected places, the better. That's why he left Hangzhou early for more open-minded Shanghai. Hearing neighbors discuss land speculation at an inn, he instantly toured everywhere, planning real estate ventures. When he overheard old Zhang and his wife talk silk trade on a boat, he immediately shifted focus to learn the ropes. Clearly, his red-top merchant glory came from official backing plus Hu's exceptional talents. But as the saying goes, what lifts you up can drop you. His downfall began with losing official support, too deep in politics. When patrons fell, his empire melted like ice in sun. Hu relied mainly on Zhuo Zongtang and official circles, contributing greatly after suppressing the Taiping rebellion. Later, Zheng Guofan voluntarily disbanded his Shang army, while Zhuo and Li Hongjiang's powers grew. Li Hongjiang always saw himself as Zheng Guofan's successor. He thought Zhou Zongtang wasn't that powerful, but with Hu Xueyan's backing, Zhou could rival him. So in Li Hongjiang's eyes, to crush Zhuo Zongtang, he had to take down Hu Xueyan, knock Hu out, and Zhuo wouldn't have cash for wars, couldn't achieve more, and wouldn't threaten him anymore. Although Zhou Zongtang got Hu Xueyan some official titles, they were just honorary with no real power. The Qing government didn't want a merchant holding big authority. But Hu Xueyan, blinded by his huge success, didn't realize this. He figured that, in business or politics, as long as he invested big, he'd surely get bigger returns. So, for Li Hongjiang, the setup to take down Hu Xueyan was perfect. He just needed a chance. And that chance came fast. The so-called Silk War, a raw silk trade battle between Hu Xueyan and foreign merchants. Here's roughly how it all went down. Starting in the late 1870s, foreign merchants controlled silk prices, exploiting Chinese silk farmers badly. To fight back, Hu Xueyan began hoarding tons of raw silk in 1881, aiming to stop the foreigners from rigging prices. But unexpectedly, Italy had a huge silk harvest that year. Plus, the Sino-French War broke out, silk prices crashed fast, foreigners teamed up to boycott Hu, forcing him to dump his stock cheaply, losing over 1 million taels of silver.
Oh!
Before this, since the Qing government was broke, Hu Xueyan borrowed over 10 million taels from HSB in his own name for them, with the government repaying it using Xishang funds. Xishang means subsidies raised by inland provinces, customs, etc., based on the court's assigned quotas. Repayments for Xueyan from remote provinces were also handled by Hu Xueyan personally. Just when Hu Xueyan was strapped for cash, HSBC's latest repayment deadline hit. This time, about 800,000 taels were due, so Hu Xueyan went to the Shanghai Daotai to demand the Xishang funds. But Li Hongjiang told the Shanghai Daotai to delay the funds. Hu Xueyan thought 800,000 taels was peanuts for him, so he advanced the money himself from Fukong Money Shop, but that left him cash poor. Li Hongjiang then sent people to spread rumors that Hu Xueyan was almost broke, telling Fukong Money Shop depositors to rush and demand their money back. So, Hu Xueyan, critically short on cash, faced massive bank runs. His Fukong Money Shop and pawn shops collapsed rapidly.
In 1883, Li Hongjiang's men accused Wen Yu, the Minister of Justice, of depositing huge suspicious funds at Fukong Money Shop.
Then Li Hongjiang personally accused Hu Xueyan of secretly adding extra interest when borrowing for the government to skim profits. Empress Dowager Cixi, then in power, was furious,
ordered Hu's assets seized, dismissed him, and cruelly commanded Zuo Zongtang to collect Hu's debts. So Zongtang had tried to save Hu Xueyan, but Li Hongjiang's moves were too precise and ruthless. Ultimately, Zuo had just used Hu for his own game. When crisis hit, he wouldn't risk everything for Hu. So after deliberation, Zuo sacrificed the pawn to save the king. After investigation, the Qing government ruled Hu owed about 12 million taels. If not repaid fast, severe punishment awaited. So Hu's painstakingly hoarded raw silk and various businesses were seized to settle debts. By 1885, Hu had almost nothing left, yet the Qing government claimed he still owed over 200,000 taels. By year's end, Hu Xueyan himself passed away. The legend of the once mighty red-top merchant faded into obscurity. Reviewing Hu's downfall, the government played a huge role. Once key to his success, it now became his death warrant. Had he not tied himself so tightly to officials, his business wouldn't have grown so big, nor been crushed so swiftly by government pressure during crisis. But just as his success wasn't solely official-backed, his failure wasn't entirely government-caused. If he hadn't strained his funds hoarding silk, Li Hongjiang couldn't have found the chance to ruin him. This reveals another reason for Hu's failure: excessive loyalty to personal ties. Since Watt improved the steam engine in the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution surged westward. Machine mass production inevitably replaced traditional crafts. Hu Xueyan recognized this, but Confucian influence made him prioritize loyalty, often overlooking practical gains and losses. As we said earlier, his risking life to get grain for Wang Yiling shows this personality trait. That's why, knowing machine-made silk was far better, he still battled foreigners to protect traditional silkworm farmers' livelihoods, sealing his tragic fate. Hu Xueyan's ending was so heartbreaking. It makes you dig for deeper reasons, and the answer seems clear. In feudal society, merchants ranked far too low. Society centered on small-scale farming, valuing absolute stability, while merchants were mobile, clashing with core values and lowering their status. In the scholar-farmer-artisan-merchant hierarchy, they were dead last. In such a society, Hu Xueyan's individual power was severely limited. To survive and grow, he had to leverage officials, honing that success strategy we discussed.
But fundamentally, officials couldn't truly safeguard merchant development.
Hu had to use shady tactics, like pulling personal strings when bureaucracy failed. For example, even facing ruin, he threw a lavish wedding for his daughter. Admitting weakness wasn't an option.
Otherwise, his official image would have collapsed instantly.
Crucially, back then, officials didn't protect private property or build pro-business systems.
This guaranteed that when Hu faced risk, officials would just kick him while he was down.
The book notes Hu often envied foreign merchants whose governments backed them, even going to war for their interests.
Yet when Hu was in crisis, the Qing government didn't help. It crushed him immediately.
The epilogue argues Hu battled foreigners over silk to protect Chinese farmers' livelihoods. A modern government would have supported him. Sadly, that government lacked such awareness, making Hu's failure a tragedy of his era. That concludes our overview of the complete biography of Hu Xueyan. Like Bao Yang's other novels, it's incredibly complex. Although Hu Xueyan is the protagonist, he's more of a narrative thread in the book. Through him, the author introduces many other people and events of that era. These rich characters and complex stories are just as fascinating as Hu Xueyan's own tale. Meanwhile, the authentic historical settings and social atmosphere make readers completely immersed. It's a novel, yet readers treat it as actual history. This stems from Gao Yang's unique style, creating history through fiction and fiction through history. Before writing, he'd extensively research historical materials, fully understand facts, and seek dramatic conflicts within them. Then he'd develop plots based on these elements. Real events, laws, regulations, and social customs from historical records are seamlessly woven in, with detailed explanations of industry practices and folk traditions, enriching the cultural depth and historical authenticity. Yet Gao Yang doesn't rigidly adhere to records. For undocumented parts, he imagines boldly based on common sense, enriching details. This gives his novels a signature trait. Major facts stay true, minor details stay flexible. Major facts stay true means respecting core historical accuracy. Minor details stay flexible means reasonable fictionalization and specifics to deepen characters and advance plots. For example, historical records only mention Hu Xueyan's Silk War with foreigners. But Gao Yang added a plot where Hu plans to acquire a new silk reeling factory to control the entire supply chain.
This intensifies Hu's shrewd image, makes the story more intricate, and renders his eventual failure more tragic.
The entire work becomes more vivid as a result. All right, that concludes our interpretation of the complete biography of Hu Xueyan.
Listening notes are below the audio. See you next time.